This is a Yellow-Blotched map turtle, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can take care of one. These guys make really amazing pets, and I feel like they're not talked about enough in the reptile keeping hobby, but we'll get to why that may be the case in a minute. I love the way these guys look. They have beautiful shells, beautiful spikes, yellow spots, and the coloration on them is just super awesome, and I love the way they behave. They're not super demanding as other pet turtles, and they don't require a massive amount of space, and that's why I think these guys can make really great pets. Yellow-Blotched map turtles come from the southeast region of the United States in the Pascagoula River system in Mississippi. They're endemic to their area, meaning that they're only from that part of the world and nowhere else. This is probably why they're not talked about enough in the reptile community, because they are classified as a threatened species, meaning that they are low in numbers and are close to becoming endangered animals. It's also possible that by the time I put out this video, or in the near future, whenever you're watching this, they may already be an endangered species. However, there is some good news. There are a few breeders in the United States that are doing their best to breed these turtles in captivity, and we're slowly beginning to see them rise in numbers. My Yellow-Blotched map turtle, who I named King, I got him from a reputable breeder that was local to me. It was born and raised captive bred, and I was all good to go. This is why I strongly recommend that you only buy captive bred Yellow-Blotched map turtles and never ever wild caught. Now let's talk about the size of the enclosure you'll need for your turtle. I'm going to highly recommend that you start off with at least a 40-gallon tank or larger if you have the space for it. So probably like a 55-gallon or 75-gallon tank. Now, unfortunately for me, I keep mine in a 30-gallon tank, but I promise you this is only temporary, and I plan on upgrading King's tank to a 55-gallon or 75-gallon tank in the very near future. I kind of bought King on a whim when I got this new aquarium tank, and when I saw him at the local reptile shop, I kind of fell in love with him, and I just wanted to have him. It was a bit of an impulsive buy, but honestly, I don't regret it whatsoever. I love King. He seems pretty happy in his tank, almost has never given me trouble, and I definitely plan on upgrading him to a bigger tank very soon. Also keep in mind that these turtles can live up to 30 to 50 years old from what I've researched, as long as they are given the proper care requirements, which is pretty insane. So you'll want to make sure they're living in an appropriate sized tank for the rest of their life, and know that this can be a pretty big commitment for some people. Next, we're going to talk about their size, because there's actually a reason why I got him specifically for my tank. The local reptile shop had him and another female that were kept together. Male Yellow-Blotched map turtles typically get to around 4 to 5 inches, while females max out to 6-7 inches.
6-7!
Because I had a small tank, I wanted to make sure I got a male. Now, sometimes males can stay around 3 to 4 inches, but King has grown to at least 4 or 5 inches and will probably stay at this size for the rest of his life. So he's a pretty big boy, which again is why I plan on getting him a bigger tank for him very soon, I promise you. When I first got him, he was around 3 to 4 inches, and now he's grown and just loves to swim around and eat all the time and goes absolutely crazy for food. We'll get to food in a moment, but I do want to jump into what you'll need for the tank that you'll be keeping your Yellow-Blotched map turtle in. I would definitely recommend using a sand substrate for your aquarium, or flat stones, or a bare bottom. Gravel is okay, but if you're going to use gravel, make sure it's not small enough so that the turtle would eat it. I don't know, to be honest, I'm just not the biggest fan of gravel substrate for turtles or in general, but I think sand will work much better for you. It'll be easier to clean, and it'll probably be your very best option. Definitely add in some decor. A few hiding spots would be nice, because they can get startled pretty easily, and giving them some spots to hide in can make them feel comfortable, but don't add in too much decor, because you want to be able to give them plenty of space to swim around in. If you're thinking about doing live plants, I would definitely do my research and be a little careful with that, because these guys can eat the plants. They have eaten algae wafers before that I've dropped into the tank for the snails and autosynclus, so I would not be surprised if they try to eat live plants too. I just keep mine with artificial plants, so I don't know, it's totally up to you, but just do your research on that, I guess. Yellow-Blotched map turtles are great swimmers, so I would definitely have more water in your tank rather than less water. I know some people keep their turtles in tanks that are half full of water, but for these guys, I would give them as much water as necessary, because they love to swim and they're really good at it. Also, you'll want to get some sort of basking spot, whether it's in the water or out of the water. Either or is fine. Just make sure that wherever it'll be, it needs to be at least 6 or more inches away from the heat source. I have a cheap floating log basking spot that King likes to hop onto every day to bask in the heat and UVB. It's good for his health, and it also helps him metabolize properly. For the heat source, you will need a heat lamp and UVB. That is an absolute must. I have a dome fixture that holds a 50-watt heat bulb and a Zoomed ReptiSun 10.0 UVB bulb. These turtles do require UVB. It's a essential for their health, and you cannot keep one without using UVB. For the UVB light, you will need to replace it every 6 to 12 months. Honestly, it doesn't matter much what brand you get so long as it works properly. Again, do your research. There are tons of these types of products out there that you can easily get for cheap on Amazon or wherever else. And again, a very, very important rule, make sure to keep the heat source at least 6 or more inches above the basking spot. I think 6 inches is a sweet spot, but any lower than that could potentially burn your turtle, and none of us want that to happen. 6 inches gives it enough distance for your turtle to bask in comfortably without getting burnt. For the filtration system, I currently use a Topfin IF40 internal aquarium filter. It's meant for 30 to 40 gallon tanks. I like it a lot because it's very simple and it's pretty quiet, but ideally you will have a 40 gallon tank or bigger for your turtle and not do what I'm doing. In that case, I would highly recommend you get a Fluval canister filter or something like that. See, the deal with any turtle is that they can be very messy and they can also poop a lot, and it's much better if you're over filtering your tank rather than filtering it the normal amount. So for example, if I'm going to be keeping my turtle in a 55 gallon tank, I'm not going to get a canister filter that's only meant to filter tanks up to 55 gallons. Instead, I'm going to get a larger canister filter that is meant for bigger tanks, like a 75 gallon. It'll help keep your tank cleaner, ideally less maintenance, and it's just really handy to have. For me, I have to do water changes once a week, especially since I have an open aquarium and water evaporates quickly from the tank. Also, side note, if you do get a cage lid to go on top of your tank, still remember to follow that 6-inch rule for the basking spot and heat source if you're going to have your heat source sitting on top of that lid. I just have mine hanging over top and being held by a sturdy crane thing. Honestly though, I'd say it's good to do water changes weekly, but doing them bi-weekly is also fine. That's once every 2 weeks, but that's the bare minimum. Also, some people might be wondering about whether or not they should cycle their tank before they put their new turtle into their new aquarium, and that's totally fine to do, but honestly, I've never had to do that. I've been keeping fish in aquariums for several years, and I had never ever once cycled my tanks, and I've had great success. All I would do is fill up the tank with the right amount of water. I would use API's Quick Start and Stress Coat and sometimes Aqua Essential to clear the water of contaminants and chlorine and make it suitable for the fish and the turtle in this case. I'm not sponsored by API or any product mentioned in this video, but I am a huge fan of API's products. They're amazing. They've helped me out with everything and keeping my tanks in pristine condition, as you see, and I highly recommend you get a few bottles for when you begin to set up and take care of your aquarium. I'll list the ones I currently have down below with some links as well so that you can take a look for yourself. Again, you can totally cycle your tank if you think it is the better way or necessary. Just do your own research and decide for yourself. Don't just listen to me and assume that everything I'm saying is right. I'm only speaking from my own experience, but yours could be different. So again, please do your own research. In regards to water temperature, Yellow-Blotched map turtles typically like it somewhere between 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I just keep it in the middle around 75 degrees. Their basking temperature will need to be around 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're not sure where it's at, get yourself an infrared thermometer gun that can easily tell you the temperature of the basking spot. It's really useful. Also, for the water temperature, I have a digital thermometer that sticks to the glass. It's very cheap. I got mine on Amazon for like 10 bucks. I'll add the links to everything in the description below. And I also have a submersible aquarium heater to keep the water nice and warm. If the water temperature falls below 70 degrees, don't panic, your turtle can survive, but do your best to just try to raise the temperature back up by doing a water change or getting a better aquarium heater. Just always do your best to stay in the middle of those provided ranges for the water temp and the basking spot. For the lighting, I also use this LED light that I've attached to the tank just to make it light up and look nice. I have my LED light, heat lamp, and UVB all plugged into a smart plug called Tapo that is sent to a timer on an app on my phone, so that the lights can turn on and off automatically. I basically just adjust the settings to make it match whenever the sun comes up and when the sun goes down in the area that I live in. It makes things so much easier. Again, I'll provide a link to the smart plug in the description below, but I promise you guys that it is super helpful. There are also a bunch of tutorials online that can help you properly set it up once you get it, so no worries there. It's really easy to do, I promise. Now let's get into what these turtles love to eat. In the wild, these turtles will typically eat insects, fish, small snails, crustaceans, and even plants. Again, if you're gonna put live plants in your aquarium, do be cautious of that. I feed my turtle these nutrient-dense pellets from ZoomEd. The pellets do vary in sizes, so make sure you get the appropriate size for your turtle. You just need to make sure the pellet size is able to fit in their mouth and it's not big enough to have a hard time swallowing it, because the last thing you want is your turtle to choke on a pellet. I also feed my turtle Hikari bloodworms, Aqueon sinking shrimp pellets, and even freeze-dried shrimp. And sometimes he'll even go for an algae wafer, again, if I drop it into the tank for my snails or auto sink sinkless. There's a wide variety of things you can feed your yellow-blotched map turtle, but please do your research and make sure you're not feeding it anything that it's not supposed to eat. I feed my turtle about once every day, but when they're adults, you can also space it out to once every other day. Some people will say to feed them once every 2 days, and you can totally do that too, but I just feed mine once every day, and I'm just mindful about the amount of food I throw into the tank. Obviously, you don't want to overfeed your turtle, and also throwing too much food into the tank can cause ammonia to rise, and you don't want that. Also, something I probably should have brought up before, but I would highly recommend that you get yourself a water testing kit so that you can monitor the water conditions of your tank and make sure everything is okay. I use API's freshwater testing kit. It's amazing, and I use it about once a month just to check all the chemical levels and see if everything's okay. It comes with clear instructions, it's very easy to use, and this is something I would say is an absolute must-have for any aquarium keepers. If you want, you can also get yourself an automatic fish feeder, fill that up with food, and let it do the work for you. So that way, if you go on vacation or you don't like doing the feeding yourself, then this will just drop in food for you and you'll be all set to go. I got one of these on Amazon for around 20 bucks. Links for everything will be in the description below. I just personally like to feed King myself because it's more fun for me and it gives me a chance to bond with him too. Every single time I come up to the glass, he almost always comes my way. He gets really excited, but that's mostly because he's expecting food. Still, I think it's pretty cute and it's a lot of fun for me. I've also begun training him on how to tong feed and hand feed. I ordered myself a bottle of freeze-dried shrimp that were long and big enough for me to use my tongs to grab with, and occasionally I would slowly hover it over him for him to try to go up and feed him. He would go absolutely crazy for this stuff and he loves it. And he honestly started eating from my tongs really quickly. I only did tong feeding with him for about 2 weeks and then I started moving on to hand feeding him. I tried getting a long piece of the shrimp to go on my fingers. Now at first he was kind of intimidated by this, but then when I got myself a nice long piece of shrimp and gave it to him, he went crazy for it and he actually ate it out of my fingers. It was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous at first because I didn't want him biting my fingers and thinking my fingers were worms or food or something. I was able to get it done, and as you can see here in the videos, he is eating from my fingers every time I give him a piece of the freeze-dried shrimp, and he absolutely loves it. And again, this is why I like to feed them personally, because it's a chance for you to bond with your turtle, and it's so much more fun, and it provides some enrichment for your turtle as well. These guys are much smarter than we give them credit for, and that's just another one of the many reasons why I think these guys make amazing pets. Speaking of bonding, let's talk about their behavior. Handling them is something you will almost never ever be doing since they don't like being handled at all. The only time they might come to your hand is if you try hand feeding them in the water with food on your hand. But again, I told you guys how you can do it with your fingers and the tongs with the actual hand. I have yet to try that, but maybe eventually I'll get there. It's kind of hard when the food is floating on your hand, and ideally the goal is for him to swim onto your hand as like a little ledge and then eat the food from there or something. But that still is very intimidating. I did try that once or twice and he never came up to me, but you can train your turtle to do that. I do believe it is possible. It does take them a long time to get comfortable because, not gonna lie, these guys are scaredy cats. It's okay to take them out of the water if necessary whenever you're doing a big water change or redecorating your tank or moving or something like that. Just make sure you have something to hold them in, like a small tank or container. Fill it up with a little bit of the tank's water just to keep them hydrated and so they feel somewhat comfortable until you're able to put them back in their tank. I've taken King out of his tank for a minute just to show friends and family once in a while, but I rarely ever do this, and I only do it for a moment and put him back in the water because I don't want him to get stressed. Again, these guys are not meant to be handled. They can get startled pretty easily by sudden movements or very loud noises, and when they see a giant like you trying to pick them up and play with them, they're going to get scared. These are more of a display animal, something to admire and enjoy from afar, but not too close. They can be very cautious and timid at times, but once they get comfortable in the environment that they're in, they can actually become pretty chill, and you'll almost always see them being active. That's the one thing I really love about yellow-blotched map turtles. They are very active. At least mine is. I always see King swimming around his tank doing something, and if he's not doing that, then he's busy basking under the light. I told you guys before that I love feeding him personally because he will always swim up to me expecting food, and he seems to be really happy whenever I do feed him. Also remember that it's important to keep a proper light cycle for these guys because they do sleep, and if you're keeping your lights on at night, they won't know whether or not it's night and day, and they can have a difficult time sleeping, and that can have an effect on their overall health. That's why I have the Tapo Smart plug to automatically turn the lights on whenever the sun comes up, and whenever the sun comes down, the lights turn off. And speaking of health, you'll definitely want to keep an eye out for signs like deformities or dull color in their shells or flakiness, because these can be strong indicators for sicknesses, and it's a sign that they're not receiving the proper care, nutrients, lighting, and water conditions. This is why I stress a lot on making sure you do your very best to keep up with maintenance, give it the proper amount of heat and UVB, monitor and provide ideal water conditions for the turtle, feed it well, well, and you should be fine. Otherwise, they can develop sicknesses like fungal infections or even metabolic bone disease. Those diseases will slowly kill your turtle, and you do not want that to happen. So please do your research on all the things we've discussed so that you can be prepared for anything that may happen. We're in the home stretch here, folks. Just got 2 more things to talk about and then we're good. Now we're going to go over tank mates for your Yellow-Blotched map turtle. These guys can do fine on their own, but if you want to keep tank mates with your turtle, here's what I have to suggest. I keep mine with a small school of tiger barbs, and I also keep 3 auto sinkless fish in the tank as well, just to keep the tank a tad bit cleaner since they eat algae. The tiger barbs I have mostly eat the Hikari bloodworms I dropped in for them in King. You can feed them specialized flakes for fish as well. Tiger barbs are semi-aggressive, which is why I chose them to be in the tank with King, because if King tries to bother them or eat them, they can hold out on their own. Here's the honest truth though. You have to accept the fact that it will be entirely possible that your turtle may try to eat your fish. King actually already ate one of the tiger barbs, but since then he has never ever tried to go after them again. But I just want to warn you so that you won't be too upset if your fish gets eaten by your turtle. Just don't keep any fish in the tank that are expensive or that you'll have an emotional attachment to, because it is possible that your turtle might get a little hungry or annoyed or even by accident just eats one of your fish. Now, do they do this often? No, I don't think so. They actually do a pretty good job of being chill and peaceful around other fish, but still consider the possibility. And don't think that feeding them more often will help deal with their hunger, and that will make them not try to eat any fish. It doesn't matter if they're hungry or not. Literally at any point during the day, they can just randomly decide to do it. That's why I would recommend fast moving fish like Danios, Rasboras, guppies, or even semi-aggressive fish like tiger barbs. If you have a big enough tank, you can even keep bigger fish in there, but just make sure they're not aggressive or big enough to the point where they'll actually start bullying your turtle or trying to grab it in its mouth or something. Also, if you want to cohab your Yellow-Blotched map turtle with another one, please make sure that you have the ideal space for 2. It is possible to cohab these guys, but only in the ideal conditions, and so long as you've done your research. I would say a 120-gallon tank or bigger would be suitable for 2, no less than that. Again, if you're considering getting any tank mates for your turtle or cohabbing, please do your research on what is appropriate for you to have to do. Also, if you plan on breeding Yellow-Blotched map turtles, a fun fact I learned was that these turtles will actually stroke each other's heads with their claws, the male and female, and do this sort of ritual dance to attract one another, and then make love somehow. I don't know exactly how their dirty business works. I'm not a breeder, but if you want to try to make it happen, just do your research and talk to other professionals who breed these turtles. Okay, last thing we're talking about is price and availability for these guys. The price for these turtles may vary, but more often than not, they are going to be somewhat pricey. Usually somewhere between $400 to $800. Now, I've seen these turtles go for more than $800, and I've also seen them go for less than $400. It also depends on if they're babies, juveniles, or adults. I got mine for a really good price under $400, but again, it might totally vary for you depending on where or who you get your Yellow-Blotched map turtle from. Please remember, before you even consider buying a Yellow-Blotched map turtle from anywhere or anybody, always make sure to ask and find out whether or not it is a captive bred turtle. You always want to make it captive bred. It promotes more captive breeding in the reptile keeping industry, and this way you're not dealing with an illegally wild caught turtle that may have parasites, disease, or whatever else. So in regards to availability, it will be fairly difficult for you to find these type of turtles. However, we are slowly starting to see a rise in their population in captivity. You most definitely will not be finding these at your local PetSmart or Petco. You'll have much better luck trying to find them at your local reptile shop or reptile expo, which in my opinion will be your best bet. So that's all you need to know about how to take care of a Yellow-Blotched map turtle. If you think there's anything I missed or would like to ask about that I didn't mention or talk more on, please comment down below and we can start a conversation. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching Krocatomic.